Hello again, everyone. Today I am in the can again. I am doing a voiceover for this video. Today I'm going to be swatching these Winsor and Newton watercolor markers. And before I tell you what this color is and subsequent colors are, I wanted to let you know that this has definitely been my favorite watercolor marker that I've tried. I really like the colors. I really like how they blend with the water. They work really well on this cold press watercolor paper. And when I went and looked up the information about these, this is meant to be used on watercolor paper. So that might be a difference between these Winsor Newton watercolor markers and some of the others. And actually you can intermix them with Winsor Newton actual watercolor paints. And I just think a little bit more thought went into how these would be used from a fine art, or, well, I should say art perspective, as opposed to lettering or something else. So I am going to put a link below down to my videos where I have done swatching of both the Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer watercolor markers and the Ecoline watercolor markers. So you can kind of see the differences between these. So I'm going to catch up a little bit here and give you these colors. So that first one was Lemon Yellow Hue. The second one is Cadmium Yellow Hue. And this one that I'm swatching right now is Yellow Ochre. And all of these have a two-sided, they're two different tips, one on each side. That's also a difference between this and the Ecoline. I believe that the Faber-Castell were double-sided as well. But these have a very thin tip on one side and then a brush tip on the other, which is really quite nice. This next color is Burnt Sienna. So you'll see how they really blend quite nicely. The first pass might not have done so well, but then I go back and you can still move those colors around quite a bit after. And even after it's sat for a while, the water kind of mixes with the pigment and you can get a little bit of a better blend. There were still some marks underneath where I put the water, so you could still use these as you would anything else in a palette of mixing colors. You could do that and then just use a brush directly. This color is Burnt Umber. And these markers are actually the ones that I've had sitting around the longest of all of the different watercolor markers I had. I actually forgot I had these. I had these in a little jar down in my art room, and I decided to get them out and see if I can use them more. And I'm glad I did, because I actually think I'm going to use them more now that I've done this swatching again. So this is Cadmium Red Hue. What hue basically means is that it's the same color, or, hopefully an almost identical match to what would be a cadmium color, but there is no actual cadmium in the color. So this next one is Alizarin Crimson Hue, which I find a little odd because these are all pigment-based markers, which means they're not going to be as light fast as regular watercolors. And in watercolors, the regular Alizarin Crimson is very, very not light fast. So they do a hue so that you could get a similar color but have a more light fast color. So I'm not sure if that's the case here. I would recommend that you look at the info for all of these products that I put on here to see more, if you can find more about light fastness and that sort of thing. That's just something generally that I'm stating as sort of a disclaimer, is that these watercolor markers are going to be less light fast overall, but some of them may have more light fastness than others. This is Dioxazine Violet. And light fastness doesn't always matter if you're going to be doing work in a sketchbook that's never going to be exposed to light. You're probably going to be able to preserve the bright colors, so it's not going to matter as much. This one, oh, and I went up here at the top. Okay, so this one is Sap Green. It's a really beautiful sap green, actually. And because I purchased these so long ago and I just put them into a jar, I can't remember if I had purchased these as a set or individually. I think I purchased them as a set. This next color is Hooker's Dark Green. And actually, the fact that I'm storing them in a jar now, I should probably mention this. So with double-tipped markers, it's really best to store them flat, because then you have an even distribution of color between between both tips of the brush, of the marker. That last color was Hooker's Dark Green, and then this one is Cerulean Blue Hue. So you really should store them flat so that you're not getting any tip on either side that is getting more dry, because the pigment inside the marker is going from one side to the other. With one or two of these, I had a little bit of trouble with some of them being a little bit dried out, but once you add the water to it, it didn't really matter. Okay, and then we're going on to this next color, which is Prussian Blue Hue. Again, it just doesn't have the true Prussian blue pigment. Maybe this one's Prussian blue and that other one was Alizarin Crimson Hue, because they don't actually have those pigments in them. That could be it. It doesn't have anything to do with light fastest, perhaps. And let's see, what's this next one? That is Indigo, which is a great color, but I did find that this one tended to leave more marks underneath the water than some of the other colors. And although this was one that was a little bit dried out as well, so that might have been part of the issue as well. Another thing that I liked about these markers compared to other watercolor markers is that I liked that the fine tip was a little bit finer than certainly the Albrecht Dürer markers from Faber-Castell. They had a little bit of a broader, finer tip on that side. So that one is Payne's Gray. The Payne's Gray is actually really beautiful. I really liked that one a lot. All right, and then the next one and last one is Ivory Black. So like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link down to the other videos that I went through, the other watercolor markers that I've swatched on the channel. And I'll just leave you with my opinion that I preferred these out of the 3 different watercolor markers that I've swatched out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you would like to keep track of future videos on my channel, please subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. But in the meantime, have a great day, and apparently also look at these Ecoline. These are the Ecoline swatches before I labeled them, and it's just showing those two compared. And I think I'm probably going back to look for the Faber-Castell ones, but I will put a link to the full videos for those if you would like to see them. All right, thanks so much for watching. Take care.